The executioner had already raised his blade. A starving Omega stood in chains before the royal throne with her head bowed, waiting for the final strike. Around her thousands of wolves watched in silence. Some called her a traitor. Others called her a witch. Not one person stepped forward to save her. Then the palace doors burst open. A giant black wolf walked inside. Not running. Not attacking. Walking with the calm confidence of a king who feared no one. The room froze. Royal guards reached for their swords, but none of them dared move. The oldest alphas slowly backed away, as if they had just seen death itself enter the palace. This was the same beast blamed for countless disappearances. The same monster hunters had searched for through 7 brutal winters. Everyone expected a massacre. Instead, the wolf ignored the throne. It ignored the queen. It ignored every noble kneeling in fear. Its golden eyes never left the trembling Omega standing in chains. The girl looked up and felt her heart stop. She knew those eyes. Every freezing night, she had crossed the forest carrying half of her only meal. Every freezing night, she had fed the starving wolf while the entire kingdom hunted it. She believed she had saved a lonely beast. She had no idea the beast had been protecting her all along. The wolf stopped in front of her. The entire kingdom held its breath. Then the impossible happened. The monster everyone feared slowly lowered its head before the forgotten Omega. No one could understand why. Not the queen. Not the Alpha Lords. Not even the girl herself. And before anyone could speak another word, the wolf's body began to change. Bones cracked. Black fur dissolved into silver mist. A man stepped out of the beast. The missing Alpha King. His first command did not save a kingdom. It destroyed a lie that had survived for 20 years. He looked at the terrified Omega with eyes filled not with anger but with recognition. Then he spoke the words that would begin a war. "Bring my mate to me." But hidden somewhere inside that palace was a secret even the Alpha King did not know. The girl he had just claimed was never an ordinary Omega. And before the sun rose again, someone would kill to make sure she never remembered who she really was. The Black Wolf should have torn her apart the first night they met. That was what every person in Frost Hollow believed. The beast stood at the edge of the frozen forest with ribs pressing against its midnight fur and icy breath drifting into the darkness. Its golden eyes burned through the falling snow while frightened villagers hid behind their doors, whispering that death had finally come back to the valley. Mothers pulled their children inside. Hunters reached for their bows. Even grown alphas refused to step beyond the village gate after sunset. Yet one fragile Omega girl walked toward the monster carrying nothing more than a small piece of stale bread wrapped in an old cloth. Her hands trembled from the cold. Her boots were cracked. Snow had soaked through the thin fabric of her dress long before the sun disappeared behind the mountains. She had not eaten a proper meal in 3 days. Even so, she kept walking. The wolf watched her every step. Its muscles tightened. Its ears lifted. The village held its breath. One leap was all it would take. One bite. One scream. Instead, the girl stopped only a few feet away and slowly knelt in the snow. Her fingers unwrapped the cloth with gentle care. Inside lay the last piece of bread she owned. She broke it into 2 uneven pieces. The larger piece she placed on the frozen ground. The smaller one she quietly slipped into her own pocket. The wolf lowered its head but did not move. The girl smiled despite the freezing wind cutting across her face. "You look hungrier than I do." Her voice was soft enough to disappear into the snowfall. For several endless seconds, nothing happened. Then the great black wolf stepped forward. One careful step, then another. It sniffed the bread. Its eyes never left hers. Slowly it ate, not with the savage hunger of a wild predator. With patience, with caution, as though it feared frightening the only soul who had ever shown it kindness. The girl reached out. Every hunter watching from the shadows whispered the same terrified prayer. "Do not touch it." Her fingers rested against the thick black fur around its neck. The wolf closed its eyes. It did not growl. It did not bare its teeth. It simply leaned into her hand like a lonely creature that had forgotten what warmth felt like. That night changed both of their lives. Her name was Alara Ashwood. She had been called worthless for as long as she could remember. She was born in Omega. In Frost Hollow, that single word decided everything. It meant weakness. It meant obedience. It meant surviving only because stronger wolves allowed it. After her parents died, during a bitter winter fever, she became little more than unpaid labor for the villagers. Every sunrise began with carrying water from the frozen river, then chopping wood until her hands bled, cleaning houses that were never her own, feeding animals that received better meals than she did. No one thanked her. No one paid her. Most barely remembered her name. To them, she was simply the orphan Omega. Useful, forgettable, replaceable. Children laughed when she walked through the market carrying baskets heavier than herself. Older women whispered that misfortune followed wherever she stepped. Young alphas mocked her worn clothes and lowered their voices into cruel laughter whenever she passed. Ilara answered none of them. She simply kept walking. There was no point arguing with people who had already decided your worth before hearing your voice. Only one place in the kingdom ever gave her peace: the abandoned mill beyond the frozen creek. Its broken wooden walls leaned against years of wind and snow. Most believed it haunted. No one visited after sunset. That was exactly why she chose it. Every evening after finishing her endless chores, she quietly wrapped whatever scraps of food she could save and disappeared into the forest. The black wolf was always waiting. Some nights it received bread, other nights dried meat, sometimes only boiled potatoes. Once she brought nothing but warm water because there was simply no food left. The wolf drank every drop without complaint. Days slowly became weeks. Weeks became months. Then years. Neither of them needed many words. She talked enough for both. She spoke about difficult mornings and lonely nights. About dreams she knew would never come true. About wondering whether anyone in the world actually waited for her return. The wolf listened. Sometimes it tilted its head. Sometimes it quietly rested beside her while snow covered both of them in white silence. It became the only place where Ilara felt seen. She never asked where it came from. Never asked why such a magnificent creature lived alone. She believed every wounded soul deserved at least one place where questions were unnecessary. Far beyond Frost Hollow, another story spread through the kingdom. Travelers spoke of the missing Alpha King. Some claimed he had died. Others swore he had abandoned his throne. The oldest storytellers whispered something stranger. They claimed the rightful king had been cursed by dark blood magic after refusing to surrender his kingdom. They said his enemies had stolen the throne while the moon goddess hid him from those who wished to finish what they had started. Most people laughed at the tale. Ilara never paid much attention. Kings belonged inside castles. Her life belonged inside snow. Winter returned again and again. The bond between the girl and the wolf grew stronger with every passing season. Then something changed. One evening Ilara noticed fresh blood staining the snow beneath the wolf. Her heart tightened. "You are hurt." The wolf tried to stand tall, but its back leg trembled beneath its weight. Someone had wounded it. She carefully brushed away the thick fur near its shoulder. An iron hunting arrow had torn through the flesh. Fresh blood continued dripping onto the frozen ground. "Who did this to you?" The wolf remained silent. Its breathing grew heavier. Without thinking, Ilara broke the arrow and slowly pulled the metal tip free. The wolf winced. A deep, painful growl escaped its throat. She froze. For one terrifying heartbeat, they stared into each other's eyes. Then the wolf gently rested its head against her shoulder. Trust. Complete trust. Tears filled Ilara's eyes. "Stay with me. Please stay." She cleaned the wound with melted snow and wrapped it using strips torn from her own cloak. When she finished, the wolf nudged her hand as if thanking her. Hidden among distant trees, a pair of cold eyes watched everything. A hunter lowered his bow. His face turned pale. "That is not possible." He ran back toward the village before sunrise. By noon, every street echoed with frightened rumors. "The cursed beast lets the Omega touch it. She must be using dark magic. Perhaps she controls it. Perhaps she feeds on innocent blood." Fear spread faster than truth ever could. By evening, the village elders gathered inside the meeting hall. Torches flickered against wooden walls while angry voices filled the room. The oldest hunter slammed his fist onto the table. "That beast grows stronger every winter because someone keeps feeding it." Another man looked toward Ilara's empty chair. "The orphan visits the forest every night. Everyone knows it." A woman whispered the words no one wanted to hear. "Kill the wolf. Kill the girl if she stands in your way." Outside the hall, snow continued falling in perfect silence. Far away at the abandoned mill, Ilara smiled as she handed another piece of bread to the black wolf, completely unaware that before the next full moon the entire village would be hunting both of them. And even more terrifying than the hunters was one impossible truth. The Black Wolf did not come to the mill that following night. The next night the abandoned mill felt wrong before Alara even reached it. The snow still covered the broken roof. The frozen creek still whispered beneath sheets of ice. The tall pines still swayed beneath the weight of another winter storm. But the silence had changed. It was too deep, too empty. She hurried across the clearing with a small bundle of roasted potatoes tucked beneath her cloak. Her eyes searched every shadow where the Black Wolf usually waited. She smiled at first, believing he was simply hiding. "You can come out now. I know you are here." Only the wind answered. She walked farther into the clearing until she reached the flat stone where the wolf always rested. Fresh snow covered every inch of it. No paw prints. No sign of movement. Her smile slowly faded. She placed the food on the stone anyway. "Maybe you are hunting tonight. Maybe you found something better to eat." Her own words sounded weak. For the first time in 7 years, she returned home, carrying an ache she could not explain. The second night was worse. The potatoes remained untouched. The third night, she brought warm broth inside a small clay jar. It froze before morning. Still the wolf never came. Days slipped into a lonely week. The forest that once felt alive now felt abandoned. Alara searched farther each evening. She climbed icy hills. She crossed frozen streams. She called until her voice became hoarse. Nothing. Only endless snow stretching beneath a gray sky. She knelt where they had first met and closed her eyes. "Please be alive. Please." Far away, hidden beyond the mountains, another pair of golden eyes watched the kingdom from darkness. The Black Wolf was alive, but chains surrounded him. Heavy silver chains carved with ancient runes wrapped around his massive body deep beneath the royal palace. Every breath burned. Every movement sent waves of pain through muscles already weakened by years of fighting the curse. Soldiers guarded the underground chamber with frightened faces. None dared enter alone. The beast had slaughtered dozens during the night it was captured. Only enchanted chains still held him. Above the dungeon, Queen Celine Voss stood beside the iron trapdoor. Her crimson cloak brushed against the stone floor as she looked down into the darkness. She smiled. "You finally returned home." The wolf answered with a thunderous growl that shook dust from the ceiling. The queen did not flinch. "You still hate me. Good. Hatred keeps prisoners alive." She turned toward Captain Aldrich. "Has anyone discovered who kept him alive all these years?" The captain bowed. "Only rumors, Your Majesty. Rumors become truth if left alone. Find the person. Leave no witness." Meanwhile, Frost Hollow had become a village poisoned by fear. The hunter who had seen Alara treating the wolf had told everyone. By sunrise, every conversation carried the same accusation. "She bewitched the beast. She serves dark magic. She brought the curse upon us." People who once ignored Alara now stared openly as she crossed the market carrying firewood. Mothers pulled their children away. Old friends refused to meet her eyes. The baker who had quietly slipped her leftover bread every winter suddenly shut his door before she reached it. She stood outside for several seconds, holding an empty basket. Then she quietly walked away. That hurt more than hunger. Near sunset, she reached her small cottage. The wooden door had been broken open. Every shelf had been overturned. Her blanket lay ripped across the floor. Someone had searched everything. She slowly stepped inside. Who was there? Silence. Then she noticed something hanging above her fireplace. A black wolf skull. Fresh blood dripped from its teeth. Below it, someone had carved a single sentence into the wall. "Traitors die with monsters." Her breathing stopped. Before she could move, heavy footsteps surrounded the cottage. The door burst open. Royal soldiers flooded inside with drawn swords. Captain Aldrich entered last. His polished armor reflected the firelight while his expression remained cold. "Alara Ashwood, you are under arrest by order of the royal crown." She stared in disbelief. "For what?" "For aiding the kingdom's greatest enemy." "I do not understand." "You will." The captain nodded. 2 soldiers seized her arms. She struggled. "You are making a mistake. I have done nothing wrong." One soldier laughed. "That is what every criminal says." The villagers gathered outside as Alara was dragged through the snow. No one defended her. Some threw frozen dirt. Others spat at her feet. A little boy picked up a stone. His mother did not stop him. The stone struck Alara across her shoulder. She stumbled but remained standing. The baker lowered his eyes, unable to watch. The village elder stepped forward. "Take her away. Perhaps now the curse will finally leave us." Ilara looked across the crowd, hoping to find even one familiar face willing to believe her. There was none. Only fear. Fear had stolen every ounce of kindness from people she had served for years. The journey to the capital lasted 3 days. Her wrists remained tied. Snowstorms followed them across frozen roads. No one offered her warm food. No one answered her questions. Every night, she dreamed of the Black Wolf, lying wounded somewhere beneath endless snow. Each morning, she woke praying the dream was not true. The capital finally appeared beyond the mountains. Massive stone walls rose toward the clouds. Silver banners danced above towering gates. Crowds filled every street. Ilara had never imagined a place so grand. Yet she entered it as a prisoner. People lined both sides of the road. Word had already spread. The girl who fed the cursed wolf. Some laughed. Others cursed her. Rotten fruit struck her back. An old man shouted, "The moon goddess abandoned you." Perhaps she did. Ilara lowered her head and kept walking. The palace stood at the heart of the city like a mountain carved from white stone. Its towering pillars reached toward the winter sky. Guards opened enormous golden doors. Inside waited the royal court, nobles dressed in silk, powerful alphas wearing silver armor, servants standing perfectly still. Every eye turned toward the frightened Omega. Queen Selene sat upon the throne, beautiful, graceful, terrifying. Beside her stood Prince Lucian with a smile that never reached his eyes. He slowly walked down the marble steps until he stood before Ilara. "So this is the famous beast tamer." He circled her once. "I expected someone far more impressive." His hand lifted her chin. "Instead I find a starving orphan. How disappointing." Ilara pushed his hand away. "I am not what you think." His smile disappeared. A sharp slap echoed across the throne room. She crashed onto the cold marble floor. Gasps spread through the court. Lucian leaned closer. "You speak only when permitted." Blood filled Ilara's mouth. Still she raised her head. "I fed a hungry animal. That is all." The queen finally spoke. "A hungry animal? No. You fed the greatest threat this kingdom has ever known. You kept him alive. Now countless innocent lives will suffer because of your mercy." Ilara shook her head. "He never hurt me." That sentence changed everything. The court erupted into shocked whispers. Never hurt her? Impossible. The queen's fingers tightened around her throne. She hid her fear well. Too well. Because deep inside she already knew what the court did not. The wolf trusted only one bloodline. Only one family. Only the true royal Luna could touch the beast without being torn apart. She looked at Ilara for a long, silent moment. Then she made her decision. Execute her before anyone asks the wrong questions. Royal guards stepped forward. Chains rattled across the marble floor. Outside, thunder rolled across the winter sky. Inside the enormous palace, every torch suddenly flickered as though an unseen force had entered the kingdom once again. Then from somewhere beyond the towering throne room doors came a sound that froze every heartbeat in the room. Heavy footsteps. Slow. Powerful. Getting closer. The guard stopped breathing. Even Queen Selene's face lost its color, because she recognized those footsteps. The footsteps stopped outside the throne room. A silence settled over the palace, so complete that even the crackling torches seemed afraid to make another sound. Every guard tightened his grip on his sword. Every noble turned toward the towering doors. Queen Selene slowly rose from the throne. Her face remained calm, but her hands betrayed her. One finger trembled against the armrest before she quickly hid it beneath her sleeve. Prince Lucian frowned. "Who is outside?" No one answered. Then the doors exploded inward. The sound echoed through every corridor of the palace. Cold winter wind rushed inside, carrying snow across the polished marble floor. Standing in the entrance was the massive black wolf. He looked nothing like the starving creature Ilara had cared for beside the abandoned mill. His wound had healed. His body seemed even larger than before. Thick black fur rolled across powerful muscles. Golden eyes burned brighter than the palace torches. Every slow breath escaped as clouds of white mist. The room froze. Several servants dropped silver trays onto the floor. One noble stumbled backward. Another whispered a prayer to the moon goddess. Even the royal guards who had faced entire armies unconsciously stepped away. The wolf took one step, then another. His claws clicked softly against the marble. No growl, no roar, only calm confidence. Captain Aldrich immediately drew his sword. Protect the queen! More than 30 soldiers rushed forward, forming a wall of steel between the beast and the throne. The wolf never looked at them. His eyes searched only one face. Ilara. She remained kneeling with chains around her wrists. Blood still stained the corner of her lips from Lucien's slap. Her heart pounded, so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She whispered without thinking, "You came back." The wolf's ears lifted. For the first time since entering the palace, his expression softened. He continued walking. Captain Aldrich shouted, "Loose your arrows." Archers standing above the throne pulled their bowstrings. Dozens of arrows pointed directly at the wolf. Queen Selene raised one hand. "Wait." Her voice sounded controlled, but inside her thoughts raced wildly. Why had he come here? How had he escaped? More importantly, why was he ignoring everyone else? The wolf passed the line of soldiers as though they did not exist. Not one dared strike first. Something ancient filled the room. Something no ordinary alpha possessed. Instinct. Every werewolf present felt it. Their wolves lowered their heads deep inside their souls, recognizing a king long before their minds accepted the impossible truth. Prince Lucien stepped forward, trying to hide his fear. "Monster, you stand before the royal throne. Kneel or die." The wolf never even glanced at him. Lucien's face darkened with humiliation. He grabbed a spear from one of the guards and charged. "Die!" The spear shot forward. Before anyone could breathe, the wolf moved. One blur of black fur. One deafening crack. The spear shattered into hundreds of wooden pieces before touching his body. Lucien stumbled backward and crashed onto the marble floor. Gasps spread through the court. The prince looked up with terror filling his eyes. The wolf could have killed him. Instead, he simply continued walking. Straight toward Ilara. She slowly stood despite the chains pulling at her wrists. Tears blurred her vision. "Everyone called you a monster. But I knew you would never hurt anyone without reason." The wolf stopped only inches away. For several silent seconds, neither moved. The palace watched without breathing. Then something happened that no one would ever forget. The giant black wolf lowered himself onto one knee before the young Omega. Not before the queen. Not before the throne. Not before the nobles. Before Ilara Ashwood. An explosion of whispers swept through the court. Impossible. The beast bowed. Why would he kneel before an Omega? Queen Selene felt cold spread through her entire body. No. This cannot happen. Not now. Not after 20 years. Ilara looked around in confusion. "I do not understand." The wolf gently pressed his forehead against her chained hands. The moment his fur touched her skin, a warm silver light spread between them. Not bright enough to blind. Soft. Ancient. Alive. The air itself seemed to hum. Every werewolf inside the throne room felt the same thing. The bond. The oldest bond known to wolf kind. Some instinctively dropped to one knee without understanding why. Others clutched their chests as their wolves howled inside their minds. Elder Rowan, who had stood silently near the back of the court, stared with tears filling his aged eyes. "It has finally begun." Queen Selene turned sharply toward him. "What did you say?" Before Rowan could answer, the silver light intensified. The wolf suddenly cried out. Not with pain. With power. His body trembled. Muscles expanded beneath thick black fur. Then the impossible began. The fur slowly dissolved into silver mist. Massive paws became human hands. The powerful body rose higher and higher. Bones shifted. The sound echoed across the silent hall. Within moments, the enormous wolf had vanished. Standing in his place was a tall man with long black hair falling across broad shoulders. His sharp jaw carried old battle scars. Golden eyes still burned with the same fierce strength Ilara remembered from the forest. A dark royal cloak formed around him, as though woven from shadows themselves. The room erupted. The Alpha King. It cannot be. He died years ago. No. He lives. Captain Aldrich dropped his sword. Several nobles immediately knelt. Others stared in disbelief, unable to move. Prince Lucien's face turned pale. Queen Selene took one slow step backward. Cale Draven had returned. The Alpha King looked across the throne room without speaking. His gaze alone carried more authority than every guard and noble combined. When he finally spoke, his voice rolled through the palace like distant thunder. "Remove her chains." No one moved. His eyes hardened. "I will not repeat myself." Captain Aldrich hesitated. He looked toward the queen. Celine remained frozen. For the first time in years, she had no command to give. A frightened guard hurried forward and unlocked the iron chains around Alara's wrists. They fell to the marble floor with a heavy clang. Red marks remained where the metal had cut into her skin. Cale gently took her hands into his own. His expression softened in a way no one thought possible. "You fed me when I had nothing. You trusted me when the world hunted me. You reminded me what kindness felt like after years of darkness." Alara struggled to find her voice. "You were the wolf." He nodded. "Every night." Her eyes filled with tears. "I thought you were dead. I almost was." Silence followed. Not uncomfortable. Deep. Heavy with everything neither of them yet understood. Then Cale slowly turned toward the throne. Queen Celine straightened her back, trying to reclaim control. "You disappeared from your kingdom. You abandoned your people. I protected this throne while you were gone." Cale looked at her without anger, without shouting. His calm frightened her far more. "You stole my throne. You murdered loyal families. You ruled through fear. Today your lies begin to die." Prince Lucien stepped beside his mother. Guards surrounded the Alpha King once again. Hundreds of soldiers poured into the throne room from every entrance. Steel filled the hall. Crossbows pointed directly at Cale. Alara instinctively stepped in front of him. "No, they will kill you." Cale gently touched her shoulder. "Not today." He lifted his eyes toward the entire royal court. His next words struck the kingdom harder than any sword ever could. "She is my mate." Every heartbeat inside the throne room seemed to stop. The Alpha King had publicly claimed an orphaned Omega before the entire kingdom. And hidden among the stunned crowd, Elder Rowan whispered words that no one else was meant to hear. "The moon goddess has finally brought the lost princess home." The throne room did not erupt into chaos. It shattered. Silence vanished beneath a storm of frightened voices. Noble families rose from their seats. Guards exchanged uncertain glances. Servants stood frozen with lowered heads, afraid that even breathing too loudly might cost them their lives. One sentence had overturned 20 years of history. "She is my mate." The words echoed through every stone wall of the palace. Alara remained motionless. She could still feel the warmth of Cale's hand around hers. Her heart refused to slow. Everything she believed about her life had collapsed within moments. The lonely black wolf she had fed through endless winters now stood beside her as the rightful Alpha King. Nothing felt real. She looked into his golden eyes. Those same eyes had watched her laugh beside the abandoned mill. Those same eyes had quietly listened whenever she spoke about her dreams. She whispered so softly that only he could hear. "Why did you never tell me who you were?" A shadow crossed Cale's face. "Because I no longer knew who I was." His answer carried years of pain. Years of loneliness. Years spent trapped inside a body that was no longer completely human. Before Alara could speak again, Queen Celine slowly stepped down from the throne. Every movement remained graceful. Every smile carefully controlled. Only someone standing close enough could notice how tightly she clenched her fists beneath her sleeves. She stopped several steps away from Cale. "You make a dramatic entrance after disappearing for 7 years. The kingdom deserves better than stories. The kingdom deserves proof." Cale met her gaze without blinking. "Proof stands before you. I never surrendered my crown. You stole it." A murmur spread through the court. Some nobles quietly lowered their heads. Others looked toward Queen Celine, waiting for her response. She smiled again. "Then where have you been all this time? If you are truly their king, why did you leave your people to suffer?" Cale remained silent, not because he lacked an answer, because revealing the truth too early would expose wounds that had not yet healed. Celine noticed his hesitation. She turned toward the gathered nobles. "Do you see? He cannot answer. Perhaps this is only another trick. Perhaps someone taught a rogue wolf to wear the face of our dead king." Several voices immediately agreed. Fear was easier than truth. Prince Lucien stepped beside his mother with growing confidence. He pointed directly at Alara. "This Omega bewitched the beast. She controls him. Nothing about this is natural." Alara's cheeks flushed. "I have never controlled anyone. I only showed kindness." Lucian laughed loudly enough for the entire court to hear. Kindness? You expect the royal court to believe that the most feared beast in the kingdom simply fell in love with a starving servant because she shared bread. The nobles laughed with him. The sound cut deeper than any blade. Cale's expression hardened. Enough. One word silenced the room. His alpha aura swept across the throne hall like an invisible wave. Power filled every corner. Several young alphas instinctively lowered their eyes. Even seasoned warriors felt pressure building inside their chests. Cale had spoken as a true king. No performance. No magic. Pure authority. Queen Selene understood exactly what had happened. If the court remained under Cale's influence, much longer they would begin remembering old loyalties. She needed another distraction. Immediately, she clapped her hands once. The enormous palace doors opened. Servants entered carrying silver trays covered with crimson cloth. Curiosity replaced fear. Selene smiled gently. Since our unexpected guest has returned, perhaps we should honor him properly. She removed the cloth from the nearest tray. Inside rested an ancient silver crown. The crown of winter. The symbol of royal authority. She lifted it carefully, then turned toward Cale. If you truly are the Alpha King, then place this crown upon your head. The room became silent again. Cale never moved. His eyes remained fixed upon the crown. For one brief moment something almost invisible crossed his face. Pain. Only Elder Rowan understood why. That crown had been cursed. Dark blood magic hidden within its silver had trapped Cale between man and wolf years ago. Touching it again, before the curse was broken, could imprison him forever. Selene waited. What is wrong? Afraid your own crown will reject you. The nobles began whispering once more. Cale did not answer. Instead he turned away from the throne and looked toward the palace windows where heavy snow continued falling across the kingdom. Ilara quietly stepped beside him. You know something about that crown, don't you? He looked at her. Not yet. There are truths that must wait. Her heart sank. She trusted him. Yet another mystery had appeared between them. At the far end of the hall, Elder Rowan slowly approached. His age forced him to lean upon a carved wooden staff. Every step seemed painfully slow. Queen Selene watched him carefully. The old healer had survived too many years. He remembered too much. Rowan bowed before Cale. My king, welcome home. Cale gently placed one hand upon the old man's shoulder. It is good to see one loyal face still standing. Rowan smiled sadly. Many remained loyal. Most simply learned that surviving required silence. His tired eyes slowly shifted toward Ilara. The moment he saw the small pendant resting against her neck, his entire body froze. It was an old silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Ilara had worn it since childhood. She believed it had belonged to her mother. Rowan reached toward it with shaking fingers. Where did you get this? She looked down. I have always had it. It was around my neck when the villagers found me after my parents died. The old healer's eyes filled with tears. No, not your parents. Your protectors. Ilara frowned. What do you mean? Before Rowan could answer, a loud crash echoed through the palace. One of the stained glass windows exploded inward. A black arrow sliced through the air. Cale reacted instantly. He pulled Ilara toward him. The arrow struck the marble floor where she had been standing only a heartbeat earlier. Another arrow followed, then another. Assassins, hidden across the palace rooftops. Guards shouted, "Protect the king!" The throne room erupted into movement. Soldiers rushed toward the shattered windows. Crossbows answered from outside. Glass continued raining across the floor. Nobles screamed and scattered. Cale pushed Ilara behind one of the stone pillars. Stay here. She grabbed his arm. Do not leave me. His expression softened. I came back for you. I am not leaving again. He charged into the chaos. With impossible speed, he caught one assassin attempting to enter through the broken window. The masked attacker barely raised a blade before Cale threw him across the hall. The body crashed against a marble column. The mask slipped away. Captain Aldrich stared in disbelief. That man belonged to the royal guard. Someone inside the palace had ordered the attack. Someone close to the throne. Queen Selene quietly stepped backward during the confusion. No one noticed, except Elder Rowan. Their eyes met across the hall. For one silent heartbeat, the old healer saw the truth hidden beneath her calm face. She had ordered the assassination, not to kill Cale, to silence Alara before Rowan could speak. The old healer hurried toward Alara. His breathing had become heavy. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Listen carefully, child. You are in greater danger than you know." She stared at him. "Why?" Rowan gently held the silver pendant. "Because this does not belong to an orphan. It belongs to the daughter of the last true Luna." Alara's world seemed to stop. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Rowan leaned even closer. His voice trembled. "You are not an Omega servant. You are the lost princess, and someone has been trying to erase your existence since the night you were born." The words refused to leave Alara's mind. "You are the lost princess." They echoed louder than the screams that still filled the throne room. For a long moment she simply stared at Elder Rowan. His weathered face carried no trace of doubt. His tired eyes held only sorrow and the burden of a truth he had guarded for more than 20 years. Alara slowly shook her head. "That cannot be true. I grew up in Frost Hollow. My parents were ordinary people. I remember them." Rowan's expression softened. "You remember the people who raised you, not the people who gave you life." Before Alara could ask another question, Kale returned to her side. A faint streak of blood crossed his cheek where one assassin had managed to strike him. The wound was shallow. He hardly seemed to notice it. His attention remained fixed on Rowan. "Did you tell her?" The old healer nodded. "She deserved the truth." Kale looked at Alara with quiet regret. "I wanted you to hear it from me when it was safe." She searched his face. "You knew all along." "Not all along. Only after I returned to the palace. When I saw your pendant, I remembered the night everything was stolen from us." Her heart tightened. "Why did no one tell me before?" "Because everyone who knew the truth was hunted or murdered." Those words chilled her more than the winter wind pouring through the shattered palace windows. Royal guards finally secured the throne room. The surviving assassins had either escaped across the rooftops or died where they stood. Broken glass covered the marble floor like frozen tears. Nobles slowly gathered again, but no one spoke above a whisper. Every eye remained fixed on Kale and Alara. Queen Selene watched from the throne with perfect composure. Inside she was unraveling. Rowan had spoken too much. If the old healer revealed the entire story, the kingdom would turn against her. She needed to destroy every remaining piece of evidence before sunrise. She gently rested one hand upon the arm of her throne. Captain Aldrich approached. "Your Majesty, should we arrest Rowan?" "Not yet. Let him believe he has won." The captain lowered his voice. "And the girl?" Selene's smile returned. "She will lead us to every secret we have missed." Meanwhile, Kale escorted Alara away from the crowded throne room into the oldest wing of the palace. The corridors there felt different. The walls carried faded murals of former Alpha kings and Luna queens. Ancient banners hung beneath high stone ceilings untouched by time. Dust-covered carved statues whose names had long been forgotten by most of the kingdom. Alara walked quietly beside him. Everything felt unfamiliar, yet strangely comforting, almost as if the palace itself remembered her. Kale stopped before a pair of heavy wooden doors. He slowly pushed them open. Warm sunlight spilled across a forgotten royal library. Towering shelves stretched toward the ceiling, filled with hundreds of ancient books. Maps covered one wall. Portraits lined another. A large fireplace crackled gently despite the bitter winter outside. No one had entered this room in years. Kale closed the doors behind them. Only then did he speak. "This library belonged to my father. And yours." Alara looked around in disbelief. "My father was truly a king." He smiled sadly. "He was my uncle." For a heartbeat she forgot to breathe. "Then we are family, distant by blood, bound by fate." Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, just heavy with truths arriving faster than either of them could accept. Kale walked toward a carved wooden chest hidden beneath an old tapestry. He unlocked it using a small silver key hanging around his neck. Inside lay dozens of carefully preserved scrolls, letters, royal decrees, family records. He handed the first scroll to Alara. Her fingers trembled as she unrolled it. At the top rested the royal seal. Below it were two names: Luna Isabella Ashwin, infant Princess Alara. She stared at the faded ink. The messenger had barely finished speaking when the palace bells began to ring. Not the bells that welcome kings. Not the bells that announce festivals. These were the ancient war bells. Deep, heavy, relentless. Each echo rolled through the palace like distant thunder, and every servant stopped where they stood. Guards rushed through the corridors. Noble families peered from behind carved doors with fear spreading across their faces. Something terrible had begun. Cale looked toward the nearest window. Snow continued falling over the capital. Yet beneath the white silence, he could already hear steel striking steel. Someone had turned the palace into a battlefield. Elder Rowan slowly straightened his back. His old eyes remained calm. "It is sooner than I expected." Ilara grabbed his arm. "We have to leave. Now." Rowan smiled gently. "Child, there comes a moment when running only delays the inevitable. Today is not the day I save myself. Today is the day I save you." Cale stepped between them. "No one is dying tonight. I will take both of you to the Eastern Tower. There is a hidden passage beneath the old chapel. Only my family knows it." A voice echoed from the corridor. "Not only your family." Everyone turned. Captain Aldrich stood in the doorway. His armor was scratched from battle. His sword still dripped with fresh blood. For a brief moment relief crossed Cale's face. "Aldrich, you reached us." The captain bowed his head. "I did." His expression remained unreadable. "The Western Gate has fallen. The Queen claims loyalists are trying to assassinate her. She has declared martial law across the palace." Cale narrowed his eyes. "That was faster than expected." "Then we move immediately." Aldrich nodded. "Follow me. I know a safer route." Rowan quietly watched the captain. Something about the man's voice felt different. Too calm. Too careful. Years of serving as royal healer had taught Rowan to trust instinct before appearances. His heart grew heavy. Without warning he spoke. "No." Everyone looked toward him. The old healer stared directly at Captain Aldrich. "We are not following him." Silence filled the library. Aldrich slowly frowned. "Why would you say that?" Rowan answered without fear. "Because the safest road is never the one offered by a traitor." The air itself seemed to stop. Ilara looked from Rowan to Aldrich, unable to understand. Cale's eyes hardened. "Aldrich, tell me he is wrong." For several endless seconds the captain said nothing. Then something inside him changed. The respectful soldier disappeared. A cold smile slowly appeared across his face. "I wish he were." His sword flashed from its sheath. Cale blocked the strike with his forearm before the blade reached Ilara. Steel screamed against enchanted armor hidden beneath his cloak. The impact drove him backward. Books crashed from nearby shelves. The library erupted into violence. Ilara pulled Rowan behind a stone pillar as more armed soldiers flooded through every entrance. They wore royal uniforms, but their swords pointed at the Alpha King. Cale roared. "Enough!" His alpha aura exploded through the chamber. Several soldiers collapsed to one knee. Others stumbled backward, gasping for breath. Yet Aldrich remained standing. He laughed. "Your power is impressive, but numbers always win." More soldiers rushed inside. Cale fought like a storm. One sword flew across the room. Another shattered against a stone wall. Every movement carried the speed of the black wolf that had once hunted beneath winter skies. Still the enemies kept coming. Too many. Far too many. Ilara searched desperately for another way out. Then Rowan gripped her wrist. "There is a hidden door. Behind the third bookshelf. Take the king. Go." She shook her head. "Not without you." The old healer smiled with quiet sadness. "You still think with your heart before your head. Your mother did the same. Go." That single sentence froze her. He had spoken of her mother with such warmth. Like family. Like someone who had been there. Tears filled her eyes. "Please, come with us." Rowan gently placed the small silver pendant back into her hand. "Protect this. It is no longer only a memory. It is proof." She looked down. The pendant suddenly felt heavier than ever before. Behind them Cale continued fighting. Even he was beginning to tire. Aldrich had anticipated every escape. Archers now appeared on the upper balconies. Crossbows pointed directly toward Ilara. Rowan noticed them first. His voice became sharp. "Run. Now." He stepped away from the pillar before either of them could stop him. The old healer raised his staff high into the air. His voice echoed across the library. "If you seek the true heir, then look at me." Every soldier turned. Every crossbow shifted. For one precious moment Ilara was forgotten. Cale understood instantly. Rowan was sacrificing himself. "No." Cale charged forward. Too late. A dozen arrows flew together. The old healer never moved. One arrow struck his shoulder. Another pierced his chest. A third entered his side. Still he remained standing. His knees finally weakened. He looked toward Alara one last time. His smile remained peaceful. Live. That was his final word. Then he fell. The staff slipped from his hands. Silence lasted only a heartbeat. Alara screamed. The sound tore through the palace. She tried to run toward him, but Kale caught her before another volley of arrows could reach them. He pulled her toward the hidden bookshelf. Forgive me. She fought against him. We cannot leave him. He is gone. No. Please. Kale struck the carved stone beside the shelf. Ancient gears rumbled beneath the floor. A narrow passage opened into darkness. He pushed Alara inside. The hidden door closed just as soldiers reached the entrance. Darkness swallowed them. Only their breathing filled the narrow tunnel. Alara collapsed against the cold wall. Tears streamed down her face without stopping. He died because of me. Kale knelt beside her. He died protecting the future. That is not the same thing. She covered her face. Everything I love disappears. First my parents. Then the village. Now Rowan. Kale wanted to comfort her. Instead he remained silent. Some grief deserves silence more than words. The tunnel stretched beneath the palace for what felt like miles. Far above them the sounds of battle slowly faded. Eventually faint moonlight appeared ahead. They emerged inside an abandoned chapel hidden beyond the outer walls. Snow covered everything. The city behind them burned. Black smoke climbed into the winter sky. Kale stared toward the palace. Something felt wrong. Too quiet. Then, hoofbeats thundered across the frozen field. A lone rider raced toward them. His horse collapsed from exhaustion before reaching the chapel. The rider stumbled forward covered in blood. Your Majesty, the northern barracks have fallen. The western towers have surrendered. The Queen controls the capital. Kale clenched his fists. How? The rider lowered his head. The Beta commanders betrayed us. They opened the gates from within. Kale closed his eyes. The betrayal reached deeper than he had imagined. Their own warriors had delivered the kingdom into Celine's hands. Before anyone could speak again, another sound drifted through the snow. Soft. Familiar. A wolf's howl. Kale suddenly turned toward the forest. No. Alara looked at him. What is it? His face lost all color. The howl was not a warning. It was a signal. Someone had found them. From the darkness, dozens of cloaked riders emerged between the snow-covered trees. They surrounded the chapel without making a sound. At their front rode Prince Lucien. He smiled as though victory had already been decided. Kale stepped protectively in front of Alara. Lucien raised one hand. Do not kill the king. Not yet. Take the girl alive. Everything after that happened in seconds. Explosions of black smoke burst across the clearing. The horses screamed. The ground shook beneath their feet. Kale fought through the confusion, searching desperately for Alara. He called her name again and again. No answer. The smoke finally cleared. The snowfield stood empty. Only Alara's silver pendant chain remained lying on the frozen ground with its broken clasp glimmering beneath the moon. She was gone. The snow had erased every footprint. Kale stood alone in the frozen clearing with the broken silver chain resting in his hand. The battlefield had become silent. The smoke had drifted away with the wind. The riders were gone. Alara was gone. Only the cold remained. He closed his fingers around the chain until the metal cut into his palm. For the first time since the curse had trapped him inside the body of a wolf, he felt completely powerless. He lifted his head toward the empty sky. A deep mournful howl escaped his chest. The sound rolled across the mountains. Every wolf in the northern forests answered. Yet the only voice he wanted to hear never returned. The kingdom believed the Alpha King had lost his mate only hours after finding her. Queen Celine made sure the story spread faster than truth ever could. She announced that the dangerous Omega had confessed to conspiring against the throne before dying while trying to escape. Paintings of Alara were burned. Her name disappeared from royal records. Rewards were offered for anyone claiming to have seen the Alpha King. The kingdom slowly accepted another lie. Both the king and the girl had vanished. Winter passed. Then another. Then another. 3 years slipped away beneath endless snow. The palace grew darker with every passing season. Queen Celine ruled through fear stronger than ever before. Heavy taxes emptied villages. Young wolves were forced into the royal army. Entire packs disappeared after speaking against the crown. Hope became something people whispered about instead of believing. But deep beyond the northern mountains, where no royal banner had ever flown, another story quietly began. A woman stood on the edge of a frozen cliff watching the sunrise spill across endless white peaks. Long silver-gray fur lined the cloak covering her shoulders. A sword rested against her back. Her once simple brown dress had been replaced by armor crafted from polished black steel. Thin silver markings decorated the leather around her wrists. The frightened Omega, who once carried stale bread through lonely forests, no longer existed. Ilara had survived. She had become someone entirely different. Behind her, dozens of warriors trained across the snow-covered valley. Some were former soldiers who had escaped Queen Celine's prisons. Others were rogues who refused to kneel before a false ruler. Many had once believed the Alpha King dead. Now they followed another leader. They followed the woman who had never asked for a throne. A young girl no older than 10 raced through the camp, carrying a wooden practice sword. She stopped before Ilara and grinned proudly. "I won today." Ilara smiled. "Did you win fairly?" The little girl nodded. "I helped my opponent stand after I knocked him down." Ilara gently brushed snow from the child's hair. "Then you truly won." The child laughed before running back toward the training grounds. An older warrior approached. His name was Darius. Once the captain of the Eastern Royal Guard, he had abandoned Queen Celine after witnessing innocent families executed without trial. He bowed respectfully. "The scouts have returned." Ilara turned. "What did they find?" "The capital grows weaker. People are starving. Several Alpha families have secretly begun refusing the Queen's orders." She remained quiet. 3 years earlier, she would have rushed toward the kingdom without hesitation. Now she had learned patience. Strength meant choosing the right moment, not the fastest one. Darius looked at her carefully. "You still think about him?" She did not answer immediately. Instead, she watched snow drift across the valley. "Every single day." Darius lowered his eyes. "No one has seen the Alpha King since the night you disappeared. Some believe he died searching for you." Ilara closed her eyes. She had searched as well. 4 months after escaping captivity, Queen Celine had imprisoned her inside an abandoned fortress hidden beyond the northern mountains. Not to kill her, to break her. Everyday guards had demanded the same thing. "Admit you are nothing. Admit the throne belongs to Celine." Every day she refused. Then one stormy night help arrived from an unexpected place. The prison doors opened. An elderly woman wrapped in white robes entered carrying a lantern. Her hair shone like fresh snow beneath the moon. Without speaking, she unlocked Ilara's chains. "Come with me." Ilara had no strength left to question her. She simply followed. That mysterious woman became her teacher. Her name was Lyanna. She had once served as the High Guardian of the Moon Temple before disappearing decades earlier. She knew the truth about Ilara's birth. She knew the forgotten history of the Royal Bloodline. Most importantly, she refused to let the lost princess become another victim. Under Lyanna's guidance, Ilara learned more than combat. She learned leadership, discipline, mercy. She learned that real strength was never measured by fear. Every morning began before sunrise. Every mistake became another lesson. Every scar reminded her that survival alone was not enough. She had to become worthy of leading those who believed in her. Months became years. The frightened village girl slowly disappeared beneath quiet confidence. She no longer doubted herself. She no longer apologized for existing. The people around her noticed it before she did. One evening after training ended, Lyanna placed an ancient silver blade into Ilara's hands. "This belonged to your mother." Ilara stared at the weapon. Beautiful moon-shaped carvings flowed across the steel. It felt strangely familiar, as though it had been waiting for her. Lyanna smiled softly. "Your mother defended the weak with this sword. Now it belongs to the last woman carrying her blood." Ilara knelt respectfully. "I am not ready." Lyanna gently lifted her chin. "Neither was your mother. Great leaders are not born ready. They become ready because others need them." Those words stayed with Ilara forever. Back in the present, another scout galloped into the valley. His horse stopped sharply before the gathering. He jumped to the ground, breathing heavily. "Commander." Ilara stepped forward. "Report." The scout swallowed hard. "A secret prison caravan crossed the eastern pass this morning. We followed it. Inside one of the prison wagons was a young boy around 8 years old. No ordinary child. The soldiers called him the Royal Cub. Every warrior around the camp looked at one another. Ilara frowned. Royal Cub. The scout nodded. The queen ordered him transferred before the coming festival. No one is allowed to see his face. Darius folded his arms. Why would Celine hide a child? Lioness slowly walked from her tent. Because she fears his blood. Everyone turned toward the old guardian. She looked directly at Ilara. There is one truth Rowan never had the chance to tell you. Ilara felt her heartbeat quicken. What truth? Lina took a slow breath. On the night your mother was murdered, she protected not one royal child. She protected 2. Ilara stared at her in confusion. 2. Lina nodded. You were smuggled to Frost Hollow. The second child vanished before sunrise. No one ever discovered where he went. Until now. Silence spread through the valley. The royal cub, the hidden child, a surviving heir. Everything suddenly fit together. Queen Celine had spent years hiding someone whose very existence threatened her throne. Ilara looked toward the distant mountains where the capital waited beyond endless snow. For the first time in 3 years, she felt destiny pulling her forward. She slowly fastened her mother's silver sword to her side. Then she turned toward the warriors who had chosen to follow her. Her voice carried across the valley with calm certainty. We are no longer fighting only for revenge. We are fighting for the last innocent child the kingdom has forgotten. Every warrior drew a weapon. One by one they knelt before her. Not because she demanded it, because they believed. High above them a lone black wolf appeared on a distant ridge. Its golden eyes never left Ilara. She stared back in stunned silence. The wolf watched her for one long heartbeat. Then it disappeared into the falling snow. The black wolf did not vanish because it feared Ilara. It vanished because it wanted her to follow. For one long moment, she stood motionless on the snowy ridge while the wind carried fresh flakes across her face. Her warriors waited in silence behind her. None of them spoke. They had all seen the wolf. They had all recognized the impossible. Only one creature in the kingdom carried eyes like molten gold. Kale! Ilara tightened her grip around the hilt of her mother's silver sword. Without another word, she began climbing the ridge. The snow grew deeper with every step. Sharp rocks disappeared beneath layers of ice. Frost covered the branches overhead until the entire mountain seemed carved from crystal. When she reached the summit, the wolf was gone. Only fresh paw prints remained. They stretched toward an abandoned stone watchtower standing alone above the valley. Its roof had partially collapsed. Thick vines covered its walls. Half-buried statues guarded the entrance like forgotten soldiers who had waited centuries for someone to return. Ilara slowly stepped inside. Dust drifted through narrow beams of winter light. The tower was empty, or so it seemed. A familiar voice rose from the shadows. You finally found me. Her heart stopped. Kale stepped forward. 3 years had changed him. His black hair had grown longer and now rested across his shoulders. A faded scar crossed one side of his face. His cloak was worn from countless battles. His golden eyes still carried the same quiet strength, but beneath them lived years of loneliness. For several heartbeats, neither of them moved. Neither knew where to begin. Ilara felt tears gathering before she could stop them. I thought you were dead. Kale smiled sadly. I believe the same about you. The distance between them suddenly felt unbearable. Ilara crossed it first. She threw her arms around him with a force that surprised even herself. For the first time in years, every wall around her heart collapsed. Kale held her as though he feared she might disappear again. The silence between them said more than words ever could. When they finally stepped apart, Ilara noticed something she had not seen before. His left arm carried deep claw marks that had never fully healed. She gently touched the scars. What happened? He looked away. The night you vanished, I searched every mountain between the northern border and the sea. When I found no trace of you, I challenged every rogue pack that served Celine. Most refused to speak. Some fought. These are what they left behind. She lowered her eyes. You never stopped looking. Never. Not for a single day. Before another word could be spoken, footsteps echoed outside the tower. Darius entered with several scouts. He froze the moment he saw Kale. For a heartbeat, disbelief covered his face. Then he dropped to one knee. My king. One by one, every warrior behind him followed. Not because Kale demanded loyalty, because they recognized it. Kale immediately raised them to their feet. Stand. We no longer have time for ceremonies. Darius stepped forward. Scouts have returned from the capital. Queen Selene has announced the Winter Ascension Festival. Every Alpha Lord in the kingdom has been summoned. Kale and Alara exchanged a glance. They both understood. The entire kingdom would gather inside the royal palace. There would never be a better chance. Lyanna arrived shortly afterward, carrying an ancient wooden chest. She placed it before Kale. This belonged to your father. Kale slowly opened the lid. Inside rested the royal battle armor of House Draven, forged from enchanted black steel, untouched since the night the kingdom fell. Beside it rested the Sword of Winter, the legendary blade carried by every rightful Alpha King. Kale looked at the weapon for several silent moments. Then he slowly lifted it. The steel shimmered beneath the winter light. As his fingers wrapped around the hilt, the faint silver markings carved into the blade began glowing softly. Lyanna smiled. The sword remembers its king. Alara looked into the chest. Another object rested beneath the armor. A folded royal banner, embroidered with the crest of the silver wolf. The same crest she had seen inside the forgotten library years earlier. She gently unfolded it. The fabric had survived decades without fading. Lyanna stepped closer. Tomorrow this banner will fly above the palace once again. Only if we survive. Kale answered quietly. That evening the camp gathered around a great fire. No music played. No laughter filled the valley. Every warrior understood what awaited them. Some sharpened swords. Others wrote final letters to families they might never see again. Alara walked alone beyond the edge of the camp where moonlight reflected across untouched snow. Kale joined her. Neither spoke for several moments. The silence felt peaceful. She finally broke it. Do you regret claiming me as your mate? He looked genuinely surprised. Never. I regret only one thing. Leaving you alone when the smoke covered the battlefield. She gently shook her head. That was not your failure. It was Selene's cruelty. He took one slow breath. I spent years believing I failed everyone. My kingdom. My father. You. Sometimes I wondered if the curse existed because I deserved it. Alara turned toward him. You were cursed because evil feared the man you already were. Not because you earned suffering. Kale looked at her as though hearing those words had lifted a weight he had carried for years. He smiled. A real smile. Perhaps for the first time since they had met beside the abandoned mill. At sunrise the army began marching. Hundreds of warriors crossed frozen rivers and climbed snow-covered ridges beneath fluttering banners. Villagers emerged from homes along the road. At first they watched silently. Then an old woman recognized Alara. She had once lived in Frost Hollow. Tears filled her eyes. The Omega Girl. Another villager stepped forward. She's alive. A third removed his hat and bowed. One by one people joined the march. Blacksmiths carrying hammers. Hunters carrying bows. Farmers carrying old spears hidden for years beneath barn floors. The army doubled before noon. By sunset it had become a movement. Hope spread faster than fear ever had. High above the capital the palace guards spotted thousands approaching through the snow. Alarm horns echoed across the city. Queen Selene climbed the highest balcony. Her face remained calm until she saw the silver wolf banner rising above the advancing army. The color drained from her face. Impossible. Lucian hurried beside her. Mother, the eastern gate has opened. Half our soldiers refused to fight. Selene's hands tightened around the stone railing. Cowards. Lucian looked toward the approaching army again. There is something worse. She followed his gaze. At the very front rode Kale and Alara side by side. Behind them marched wolves from every corner of the kingdom. Not conquered, united. The palace bells rang again. Not to celebrate, not to mourn, to announce the beginning of the final battle for the throne. As the massive gates slowly opened, Kale raised the Sword of Winter toward the darkening sky. His voice thundered across the frozen capital. Today no innocent will kneel before a liar again. The united army answered with a roar that shook the walls of the ancient city. Hidden inside the palace dungeon, a frightened young boy heard that roar. He looked up from his chains with tears filling his eyes. For the first time in his life, someone had finally come for him. The first gate did not hold for even a minute. The moment Kale raised the Sword of Winter, the ancient steel answered him as though it had waited years for its true master. One powerful strike crashed against the frozen gate. The iron bars split apart. Thick chains snapped. The enormous doors slowly opened inward. A roar thundered through the capital. Not from soldiers, from ordinary people. Farmers, blacksmiths, servants, women who had lost husbands to Queen Celine's cruelty. Young wolves who had grown up believing hope was nothing more than an old legend. They surged into the city beside Kale and Alara. No one marched for revenge alone. They marched for a kingdom stolen from them long ago. The palace guards rushed forward. Many raised their weapons. Many more lowered them. One gray-haired commander stepped away from the royal line and removed his helmet. He knelt before Kale. "Forgive us, my king. We serve the crown, not the woman who stole it." His soldiers followed, one after another. Within moments, hundreds of royal guards had abandoned Queen Celine. Fear had ruled them. Respect brought them home. Inside the palace, Celine watched from the highest balcony. The sight before her made something inside finally break. She had spent years believing power came from fear. Now she watched fear dissolve before loyalty. Lucien slammed both hands against the stone railing. Cowards! Every one of them. Celine remained strangely calm. "No. This is what happens when lies grow old." She turned toward him. "Prepare the throne room. The final move belongs to us." Meanwhile, Kale and Alara crossed the palace courtyard together. Snow covered the marble where Rowan had fallen years before. Alara paused for only a heartbeat. She whispered quietly, "We came back." The winter wind carried her words through the empty courtyard as though delivering them to every soul who had sacrificed everything for this day. Darius approached quickly. "The dungeon has been secured, but the queen moved the royal prisoner before dawn." Kale frowned. "Where?" "No one knows." Alara looked toward the towering palace. "She knows we came for the child. She wants us desperate." Lina stepped beside them. "Then do not give her desperation. Give her certainty. The truth always frightens those who build kingdoms from lies." Together they entered the palace. The corridors looked exactly as Alara remembered. The broken windows had been repaired. The blood had been washed away. The walls looked clean. Yet memories still lived there. She could almost hear Rowan's voice. She could still remember the chains around her wrists. This time she walked with her head held high. No one called her worthless. No one dared. The great throne room doors stood open. Queen Celine waited upon the throne dressed in black instead of crimson. Prince Lucien stood beside her wearing polished armor. Around them remained only a handful of loyal soldiers. No cheering nobles. No crowded court. Only silence. Kale stopped several steps before the throne. "It is over, Celine." She smiled faintly. "Is it? You believe winning a battle means winning a kingdom. You still think too simply." Alara stepped forward. "Release the child." Celine slowly laughed. "You mean the boy, the one I raised, the one who has never known another mother. He is safer with me. You murdered his family." Celine's smile disappeared. "I built this kingdom. Everything I did was necessary. Weak rulers create weak kingdoms. Strong rulers create peace." Kale answered quietly. "Peace built upon innocent blood is only another form of war." Lucien suddenly drew his sword. Enough talking. He charged straight toward Kale. Steel clashed across the throne room. Lucien fought with speed born from years of training. Kale fought with calm born from years of surviving. Every strike forced Lucien backward. Every block shattered another piece of his confidence. Across the hall, Celine quietly reached beneath the throne. Alara noticed the movement. "Look out!" A hidden blade shot from the side of the throne, aimed directly toward Kale. Alara threw herself forward. The blade cut across her shoulder instead. Pain burned through her arm. Kale turned instantly. His golden eyes flashed with fury. He struck Lucien's sword aside. One powerful kick sent the false prince crashing across the marble floor. The weapon slid beyond his reach. Lucien struggled to stand. He looked toward Celine. "Help me." For one long moment she stared at him. Then she stepped backward. "No." Lucien frowned. "Mother." Her voice became cold. "You were never my son." Silence swallowed the room. Lucien's face drained of all color. "What?" Celine slowly closed her eyes. "You were an orphan from the southern border. I needed an heir. You needed a family. That was all." The words struck harder than any sword. Lucien staggered backward. Everything he believed about himself disappeared within seconds. Kale lowered his weapon. He almost pitted him. Almost. Before anyone could react, Celine pulled another hidden lever beneath the throne. The floor shook violently. A section of marble slid open. Deep beneath the throne room a hidden chamber appeared. Chains rattled in the darkness. A frightened little boy stood there blinking against the sudden light. He could not have been older than 8. Silver hair framed his frightened face. Golden eyes looked exactly like those of the royal family. Ilara's breath caught. The hidden heir. The child looked around in confusion. Then his eyes stopped on Ilara. Something inside him seemed to awaken. He whispered only one word. Sister. The entire throne room froze. Even Kale looked toward Ilara in shock. Lioness slowly nodded. The prophecy spoke true. The second child lived. Celine grabbed the boy before anyone could reach him. A dagger pressed against his neck. One more step and he dies. No one moved. The child trembled, but never cried. Ilara slowly walked forward. You have already lost. There is nothing left to protect. Celine laughed bitterly. There is always something left. Pride. She tightened her grip. Then the little boy did something no one expected. He bit her hand. Celine cried out in pain. The dagger slipped. Kale moved faster than sight. He reached the child first. Ilara caught Celine before she could escape through the hidden passage. The former queen struggled fiercely, then suddenly stopped. She looked around the throne room. Every soldier had lowered their weapons. Every servant stared at her with disappointment instead of fear. She had finally become completely alone. Her shoulders slowly fell. I spent my whole life chasing a throne, and now there is nowhere left to stand. Royal guards placed iron chains around her wrists. This time no one came to save her. The throne room doors opened wide. Thousands of people filled the palace courtyard outside. Word of the victory had already spread. Kale gently lifted the frightened boy into his arms. The child looked toward Ilara. Are you truly my sister? She smiled through tears. Yes, I came back for you. The little boy wrapped his arms tightly around her neck. For the first time since their family had been torn apart, they were together again. Kale walked slowly toward the ancient throne. He did not sit immediately. Instead, he turned toward the gathered kingdom. His voice carried through every corner of the palace. Today no one wins because another has fallen. Today we begin again. He looked at Ilara, then reached for her hand. Will you stand beside me? Not because destiny demands it, because your heart chooses it. Tears filled her eyes. Always. Together, they climbed the final steps. Kale placed the crown of winter upon his own head. This time no curse answered, only silence. Then he gently lifted a second crown crafted for the true Luna and placed it upon Ilara. The palace erupted, not with fear, with joy. Outside, every bell in the kingdom began ringing together. Snow drifted gently across the capital as thousands knelt before the rightful Alph king and the true Luna. High above the palace, a lone black wolf stood watching from the highest tower. As the first rays of sunlight touched the kingdom, the wolf slowly lifted its head toward the sky. Its form dissolved into silver light. The moon goddess had never sent the wolf merely to protect a lost king. She had sent it to guide 2 broken souls back to one another and to reunite the last surviving children of the royal bloodline. Only then was the ancient prophecy truly complete, and for the first time in a generation the kingdom of winter no longer bowed to fear. It bowed to hope,